Today, we're diving into something pretty profound when it comes to healthy aging. And nope, it's not some new diet or a crazy exercise fad. We're talking about the science of purpose. For the longest time, the medical world had this pretty strict line drawn in the sand. The body, well, that was the world of science. Hard data, clinical trials, the stuff you can measure. But the spirit, that was seen as a personal thing, a soft topic. Nice, maybe, but totally irrelevant to actual clinical outcomes. But then, over the last 30 years, bam, an absolute avalanche of scientific evidence came along and just completely shattered that old way of thinking. We're talking rigorous, peer-reviewed studies that tell a story that isn't just different, it's honestly revolutionary. And all this research leads us to a really big, kind of provocative question. What if the most powerful tool we have for protecting our minds as we age isn't something we can find in a pharmacy, but something deeply human that we can all build for ourselves, a real sense of purpose? Okay, so let's get right into it. To really grasp the science here, we've got to get on the same page about what we even mean by spirituality. And I want to be super clear, this has nothing to do with religion or any specific dogma. We're talking about a clinical definition. So, in this context, spirituality is just the search for the sacred. And sacred is defined in the most personal way possible. It's whatever you hold as your highest value, your ultimate truth. For one person, yeah, that could be God. But for someone else, the sacred could be their family's legacy, or fighting for social justice, or their connection to nature. It's an incredibly inclusive and personal idea. So, how does this sense of purpose actually work? How does it become this powerful shield for our minds? Well, as we get older, life can involve a lot of loss. Maybe loss of a career or mobility or friends. And what the science shows is that a strong sense of meaning acts like a crucial buffer against the depression that can sometimes creep in. And the numbers on this are they're staggering. There was this landmark 10-year study, a big one, that followed the kids of depressed parents, so a group at really high risk. What did they find? The people who said spirituality was highly important to them had a 90% lower risk of developing major depression. Let that sink in. 90%. That's not a small effect, that's a seismic shift. And the secret sauce behind that protection? It's a powerful mental tool called cognitive reframing. So imagine you're faced with something tough, like a scary health diagnosis. A purely materialistic worldview might just see loss and decline. But a spiritual worldview, remember, that personal sense of meaning, it gives you a framework to reframe it. Maybe this challenge is a lesson in patience or an opportunity to learn how to accept love and care from others. Let me give you a perfect example. Take the case of a retired engineer who fell into a deep depression after a stroke. He couldn't use his dominant hand anymore, and he felt totally useless. But his caregiver helped him reframe his purpose. He could no longer do the gardening he loved so much, but he could observe it. So he started documenting bird migrations in his backyard, noting when flowers bloomed. He found a new, vital purpose as a witness of life. And his depression lifted, not because his body magically healed, but because his purpose came back to life. But hold on, because the benefits go even deeper than our mood. This is where the research gets truly groundbreaking. It shows that having a sense of purpose has a direct, physical, and protective effect on the actual structure of the brain. Just look at this data. It comes from the incredible Rush Memory and Aging Project. For years, they've followed hundreds of seniors. And what they found was that the folks with a high sense of purpose were 2.4 times more likely to stay free of Alzheimer's disease compared to those with a low sense of purpose. 2.5 times. But here's the part that will absolutely blow your mind. When the researchers performed autopsies on these participants after they passed away, they found something unbelievable. Many of the people who had high purpose scores, well, their brains were physically riddled with the plaques and tangles of severe Alzheimer's. Yet when they were alive, they showed no symptoms. Purpose didn't cure the disease, but it built what scientists call a cognitive reserve. It's like it created a robust neural network that allowed the brain to literally find detours around the damage and just keep on working. It's incredible. Okay, so here's a really crucial distinction. This brain protection doesn't come from just any old kind of happiness. Science separates hedonic well-being, which is all about pleasure, feeling good in the moment, from eudaimonic well-being, which is about meaning and purpose. So taking your grandma out for ice cream, that's a lovely hedonic moment. But asking her to teach you an old family recipe, engaging her sense of legacy and value, that's eudaimonic. And that is what builds the cognitive reserve that protects the brain. All right, so we've seen the why. It's a huge deal. Now let's talk about the how. The great news is there are really simple, totally non-religious tools that anyone can use to help spark this protective sense of purpose, either for yourself or for someone you love. One of the best is called the FICA tool. It's just a simple 4-part way to gently start a conversation. You don't ask, are you religious? Instead, you ask about F, faith or beliefs. Basically, what gives your life meaning? I, importance. How do those beliefs help you deal with stress? C, community. Are you part of a group that you love? And A, address. How can I support you in your care with all this in mind? Another really powerful method uses legacy questions, which are drawn from something called dignity therapy. These questions are all about helping a person see and record their own life's wisdom and value. Asking things like, what are the most important lessons you've learned in life? Or, what are your greatest hopes for your family? It reinforces who they are and the unique mark they've made on the world. Now, let's just widen the lens for a minute, because this whole conversation isn't just about the person who's receiving care. These exact same principles are absolutely vital for protecting the well-being of the caregiver, who so often struggles with their own loss of self. So, research shows that caregivers tend to use their beliefs to cope in one of two main ways. Positive coping is about finding support and seeing challenges as a source of strength, and it leads to personal growth and less stress. But negative coping is when someone feels punished or abandoned. And get this, that feeling is a stronger predictor of depression in a caregiver than how sick the patient actually is. So for any caregivers out there watching this, it's really worth taking just a moment to ask yourself, which of those inner voices sounds a little more familiar? Just recognizing the pattern is always the first step to being able to shift it. And here's one final, really powerful tool for caregivers, shifting from the golden rule to the platinum rule. We all know the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But with something like dementia, that can backfire. If a person is asking for their mother who passed away years ago, they don't need your version of reality, they need your reassurance. The platinum rule says, do unto others as they would want done unto themselves. It's about meeting them in their emotional reality, with empathy, and that reduces trauma for them and burnout for you. So when you boil it all down, the science is crystal clear. The ageless spirit isn't just a poetic idea. It's a physiological survival mechanism. Tending to our deep human need for connection, for meaning, for purpose, it's not a soft skill. It is one of the most powerful forms of medicine we have. By focusing on this, you're not just comforting a soul, you are actively protecting a brain and saving a mind.